Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka podcast.
Baka.
It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a mini-sode of Baka. We are normally an anime podcast. Every 2 weeks, we watch an anime, we come to this podcast, we talk about it, but every other week, to soothe your hearts and minds, we come together back to the mics and we talk about random topics off the top of our head. And lately, I've been bringing up the topic a lot of if you're watching an anime with source material, manga, light novel, whatever, and that source material very thoroughly explains stuff that might seem like a plot hole in the anime, what responsibility does an anime have to explain that? And so I wanted to use this minisode to discuss it. And to do that, I need the help of my co-host because they're way smarter than I am. I just hit record sometimes when we make this podcast. So
I don't want to talk about it.
First off, we have the Einzel Gone to my Tomb of Nazareth. Jeremy, how are you doing, man?
That's not fair.
I'll take it any day. Doing pretty good. Building up my BattleTech collection. Super happy about that. Yeah.
Then we also have the Daru to my future gadget laboratory. Jason, how are you?
What's that?
He was definitely my favorite character for a while, so I guess I'll take that. He was the guy in the green shirt, the fat guy from Steins Gate.
Oh, Daru. Okay, yeah.
How are you, Jason?
Warframe's got its hooks in me. They're coming out with a new open world thing called Fortuna, where you can grind on a hoverboard while you grind. But I think what's got me a little bit enamored with the game is the devs are so invested with the community. They do live streams. They're on the boards constantly. They remind me a lot of Path of Exile devs, where they don't just take the feedback and kind of give the players what they want, but they take especially the constructive feedback, and they go, oh, we made a mistake with this, and they will change it like the next day or the day after. But then they also go like, there's certain things they won't budge on. And I think that's really smart of them to be that engaged with the community. And anyways, game's fantastic. It's nice to be a space ninja.
Nice. And my name is Troy. I don't usually like horror movies, but I heard that the Conjuring movies are a shared universe. And man,
they're also a pile.
I like that. I just watched the first Conjuring. Is the reason I mentioned that. But my
Conjuring
point was,
right.
Shared universes are like cheap fish bait for me. I always bite that hook. Also, I did that Call of Duty multiplayer beta. Battle Royales can bite me.
Got to rank one though.
I got 1-1, and I haven't been able to do it again. It was very fun, but I prefer the multiplayer. But I'm glad that Call of Duty is expanding.
Getting on the bandwagon, you mean?
Are you? Oh yeah, well,
The Battle Royale bandwagon.
Yeah, that's true.
Gotta get those Battle Royale dollars.
Have you guys seen it at all? The graphics look like 10 years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But it runs very well, and I think PUBG is in trouble. I think Fortnite's fine. Just like if I made the best racing sim of all time, it's not going to affect Mario
That's
Kart.
like putting the original X-Wing on my gaming machine that I run Warframe on. Oh, X-Wing runs so great.
No, because battle royales are hard
on the server.
Yeah, and they can glitch really easy. For this, remember, this is just a beta, and it's already it's more fun than PUBG already. It's just more action packed. I think.
Hold on, have you played PUBG?
Yes.
Okay.
I
know you played Fortnite.
Yeah. Like I said, I think Fortnite's fine. I think PUBG, who was already kind of took a kick in the balls when Fortnite showed up, this might also be really a bummer for it. Anyway, let's talk about this subject. The reason I used Overlord and Steins Gate is because they really are where this topic came from when we watched them on our regular episodes. There's so many things that we had comments on where we would be like, man, why did this happen? Or how did this happen? And someone would be like, oh, if you read the manga, if you read the light novel, or you played the game, you would clearly know this is fully explained.
Yeah.
We get a bunch of that with Evergarden as well.
Yeah, and it's that's great, and I love it when we get that stuff because it does flesh out the story. But is the anime responsible for that? If I only watch the anime, does the anime need to fill that in, or do I just need to accept that I'm watching a medium that has a limited time budget? So I really want to get your guys' thoughts on this because we've been dancing around this subject for a while. So I kind of want to dig into this. What do you guys think?
Well, okay, so I want to go do kind of round table, and I'll start off with this question. Where does the responsibility of storytelling lie? For some reason, that looked like a big old bottle of Smirnoff, and I was about to be concerned.
It's a rough topic.
No wonder Troy can deal with us.
That's right.
You got to cut loose on the minisodes, man.
Because when I get those comments, right? If you had read the manga in, magazine 13, page 39, right? It feels like all of a sudden there's this storytelling responsibility on me as the consumer that it's my fault for not liking the anime because I didn't also read the manga or I didn't read the light novel.
Not a big enough fan.
Right. And
this isn't just anime. You see this I didn't like the Hunger Game movie very much. Well, did you read the book? Did you really understand it?
Oh, absolutely. And so for me,
nothing can redeem that, but go on.
Yeah. And I think Jeremy might disagree with me because he's very much into diving into a story to research the background. And I think that's one thing I really appreciate about discussing anime with Jeremy is he brings that side that I was not exposed to. But for me, if I want to buy a piece of media and enjoy that piece of media, that piece of media needs to be a complete meal. And if there's something missing, I get the salad, but they didn't give me dressing, or I'm missing the carrots, I don't think that's on me to then go back to the kitchen and get the carrots and dressing. I paid for a complete meal. I want it. So I think that's my first question to you guys is how much responsibility is it on you for the story that you're consuming in an anime?
I don't think that the responsibility should be on you when you're consuming an anime, but I think I come at it from a different angle. I think when anime are made, I would personally try to categorize them in either that they're intended to be a hook for the manga or they're intended to be a tribute for the manga. And when I say manga, I mean any external source, light novel, whatever.
I also mean manga, but it's fine.
Hey, you got to correct me. Or if it's not a hook or a tribute, then a side story, something that's encapsulated in the same universe. And so I would kind of need to answer it from the perspective of each of those. So really quickly, if it's a side story, yeah, they have the complete responsibility. I do not have any of the responsibility. It should be a complete bundled package. If it is a tribute, I also think that it should be on them to do it because they're trying to bring something into another medium completely as a whole package. They are retelling the story in this other medium. And if that takes more episodes or more seasons, give it more episodes or more seasons. That's why it would be a tribute. Because you appreciated this so much, you want to take your time and make something special that really hits all the points. But for the third one, the hook, where really the only reason for the anime to exist is to appeal to either fans that already love the series or to try and hook new people into it, I think the whole purpose of it kind of forces it on me. And I'm okay with that. I just wish there was some kind of disclaimer. And I think that's why generally with most things that I view, I try to wait and read a few reviews before I watch anything because I try to figure out, is this a hook? But of course, we can't really do that with the anime we're watching on the podcast, so we kind of get blindsided sometimes. So yes and no.
I think I agree with Jeremy here. I think if it's from a book, that kind of stuff, I think the anime is on its own, and it's not on me. I shouldn't have to go read. I don't think I ever should. Never should make me go read. There are times, though, rare, but like the Final Fantasy 15 movie, hardly explains anything that's going on in the world. It's just very much a snapshot. But it, like Jeremy said, it's this hook for the game. This movie was made for people who are going to play the game and wanted a prequel story that's not going to fully flesh out the universe, because that's what the game is for. So that one, I would be like, yeah, don't watch this movie unless you're planning on playing the game, because there's no point in this movie. And if you do want this movie to be good, it's going to be up to you to go to the game and make it good. Because once I played the game, I was like, oh my gosh, everything that happened in that movie makes so much sense now. But not when I watched it. It was just flashy, pretty Final Fantasy stuff.
I think that's fair to a point. I don't want to be made to feel like, yeah, I'm not a big enough fan, or I didn't put enough work into this piece of media when I give it a negative review because I didn't understand something that was never explained but happened to be a big story point. Mm-hmm. Because yeah, I don't read a lot of manga. I don't read a lot of books. I watch a lot of visual media, and
because we're Americans.
And I'm illiterate. Why do we always have Southern accents when we say that? Yeah, I like your point, especially with the video game thing. But then the biggest example that comes to me is like the MCU, right? You get a Spider-Man story, especially this latest one, and it's this complete package that departs from the original content. But I didn't have to go read the original, even though I'd read a lot of the original content. I didn't need to go read the original content to know what Spider-Man was about, where he came from, why he has his powers, who his love interest is. The movie did that for me. And I think there is a particular onus on the storytellers that even if they're coming from a source that's not a tribute, yeah, there's certain things in there. It's like what Troy said. If it's from a book, I shouldn't have to go read the book to enjoy the movie. Maybe I didn't get all the information, but there's got to be a way to craft that movie in a way that allows you to tell all those story beats without having to go read an entire book.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so now let's flip that. Let's go to the other side of the coin. What is in this case, anime, but any storytelling visual medium, what is their responsibility to bring to us? Now that we've said, hey, it's not my fault, it's not on us. Is it their fault? And really, a point I want you guys to touch on is, they have limited time. And think of like a movie that's also an adaptation. What is their responsibility to bring?
I'll say it here, like I've said it many times on the podcast. There's been plenty of opportunities to cut characters that didn't need to be there, that did not add value to the story, that were either boring, cardboard, or just took up time. And that time could be used to craft a much more interesting story. Because when you cut characters like that out, especially in the manga, if they were a pinnacle character and they had this deep backstory and it related to the main character in some way, you cut all of that out. Now that's a bunch of story that you're not telling, that you can spend time over here that was really important, that you just kind of grazed over because the manga took two episodes worth of paperbacks to explain. At least that would be my solution to a lot of these stories. sure, you have limited time, but if if the Great Tomb of Nazarick is such a great important symbol, and I need to know certain things about it that are explained in the manga and not in the anime, then maybe there's got to be some cuts from other pieces of the story that are not pinnacle to what you're trying to tell.
I think that it depends on their intention and the context of how big is the world they're trying to tell you a story about. If it's a really big world that they're trying to tell you a story about, I don't mind if they intend to break it out over many seasons in the series. If they drip feed bits of information in maybe a different order than they did in the original source material, that doesn't bother me too much. I think the most important thing to me is the consistency. If you are going to be producing something from another work, I really appreciate consistency, that the same events happen to the same characters, that you change as little as possible. I mean, if it was good. If it was not great and you see ways to actually make it better, okay, I'm willing to be convinced, but coming at it from the perspective of somebody who hasn't even read the original stuff, you've got one shot. If the original stuff was good, maybe you should just stick with it. Spread it out, I say, but build the world, make the world seem immersive and alive, and then make sure that there's no plot holes and the characters are interesting. And I think I'd be happy if I have those three things.
So I want to do a quick follow-up on that. What's the difference between a plot hole and a plot point they just didn't have time to show you on screen? Like, it makes logical sense that these characters went over here and did this thing that we didn't get to see, but we didn't see it, so it kind of feels like a plot hole because we're like, wait, how did those two characters do that thing? Where's that line?
I think the line is when they make absolutely no statements that you can actually use as an implication. If they give you enough data that you can imply something with some kind of circumstantial evidence, then I'm okay with it. But if they just leave it unsaid completely and you're left trying to infer something that you're really just making it up. You're trying to fabricate pieces of the puzzle to fill in, and you don't have any circumstantial evidence. That's a plot hole to me. So, for instance, I think one of the big ones is like, why was that part of the burst sensitive to light? Was it just that part? Was it all?
You're talking about Aika that we watched last.
Yeah, just this last time. There was a part of this creature that was sensitive to light, but no one ever talked about it at any other point. Or like you brought up, Jason, the girl reacted to certain things happening around her that should have made people suspicious. They noted it and then let it drop. Didn't ever talk about it again. I would classify those things as plot holes because there's no legitimate reason for people to behave the way that they behaved or for events to happen the way that they happen. And there's no circumstantial evidence to try and explain it away either. It's just literally dropped because they don't want to take the time to explain it or even try.
Jason, how about you on plot holes?
So this is the way I take it. Again, it's about the completeness of the media that I'm being presented with. If you have an event that happened that has a bunch of exposition information that explains that event outside of that thing I'm consuming, for me, there's no difference between just a story plot hole and something just not being explained. Because until I'm coming from the world of if you don't know what you don't know. Like, if I don't know that there's even a manga out there that this is a retelling of it, how am I even supposed to go find that piece of information to then fill that hole? And then again, is that enjoyable at that point? Or is that just more work for me?
I think it depends on how much you enjoyed the anime that you watched. I do have one question I want to throw out there, which is the idea of making an anime as like a hook for a series, a pre-existing series. in my mind, is a lot like having a series that goes on for season after season after season, and you're just picking it up in a later season for the first time. And maybe you didn't know that this is season 7. Maybe you just thought this was the first season and you picked it up. Would you find that to be the same situation, basically, where like you didn't realize you were stepping in the middle of something, or to watch an OVA where you know that there's a full length season that this OVA is based off of?
That's a good question. Because, like, so for instance, what was that vampire one that I had you guys watch? Kunzberg Black Shoot.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that had a ton of stuff before and after, right? That was like literally right in the middle of the weird storytelling that it ended up doing with the artsy stuff that lost me.
Yes. Bakemonogatari.
Yes.
That's it.
There were a ton of questions I had after watching that anime. Who was this vampire? Where did she come from? Why was she so powerful? What happened to this guy afterwards? The media was so well done and given enough information for the piece of storytelling that it was doing, that it made me curious enough to go search those other things out. And I think there's a big difference between what I consider a plot hole and what I would consider a teaser. Because if the thing that I'm trying to explain serves for the current plot I'm watching, that's a plot hole. If it's extra information about a character that doesn't affect the world that's being built currently, that's a teaser.
Sounds like what I was calling a side story, something encapsulated. You get a sample of the world, but it doesn't necessarily leave things out, leave holes.
So I can't answer this very well because I can't imagine a world where I would watch something in season 7 and not at the beginning. Like when Jason showed us that scene from that movie, he's like, "This movie's awesome. You guys should watch it." I'm like, "Oh, but there's 10 seasons of this show. I'm going back to the beginning, guys. If I get to the movie, I'll let you know." There's no way I can go watch that movie knowing there's 10 seasons ahead of it. And even though it's a prequel, there's just something in me that I can't do that. I just can't.
Yeah.
I wanted to answer some of the other stuff from earlier, because I feel like I'm the guy who probably is most forgiving for stuff like plot holes. I tend to, as long as you're hitting your emotional beats and themes, you carry me through.
Your what beats?
How do you say it?
Emo.
Oh, I know those kids. So there's things I do give a pass for. Some spoilers for Overlord. When we watched Overlord, we didn't find out that Demiurge had made a contract with the princess, right? We had found that out in a comment later. It's not shown in the anime. When we were told it made perfect sense. There was a little bit of a visual clue, but other than that, it was fine. I don't see that as a plot hole because you didn't bring it up, and it didn't really ruin any of the emotional journeys of any of the characters. I still got what Demiurge was doing and how that affected everybody else. In the same anime, you remember the beginning of season 3, there was that dragon, and we also had comments about who that big dragon guy was. And that, I feel, was poorly done because you introduced me to something, but you couldn't explain it to me. So now I'm emotionally invested in something, and then you just rip it away and like, hey, it's in a book. And they'll probably come back to it later seasons, so that might come back to bite me. But we got a bunch of answers like, oh, in the book, we know who this guy is. And I'm like, well, that doesn't help me.
Yeah, and for me, there's no difference between that and a plot hole. As much as I love Overlord, and I love its world, you are absolutely right. That is a perfect example of something I would consider a straight-up plot hole because I didn't read the book, and I didn't know it was in the book. I didn't even know there was a book.
Yeah, for me, that kind of stuff doesn't bother me too much. For me, what bothers me is contradictions. Plot holes, I don't mind. If there's a lack of information, I'm willing usually to go and seek it out. But if there's contradiction, I think that's where I draw the line.
Okay. Well, I think we touched on a lot of stuff. There's some more deeper stuff I want to get into, but I'm going to save it for probably my next minisode topic, which will be in a little while. I do want to hear commenters if you've listened to us ramble. You know, a lot of people who comment are the people who have read the novels. What do you guys feel is appropriate? You know, do you feel when you watch an anime like Overlord the responsibility to go watch it, read it, and fill in gaps? What about animes that you can't do that? How does that make you feel? That's some stuff I'd like to see, because I feel like we're a lot on one side of the coin, because none of us have gone and read supplemental material for any of the anime we've seen. We really just don't have time. We cram so many of these animes in, and then still have our own personal hobbies and stuff we do. I still watch a couple extra animes. My Hero Academia. But yeah, so I would love to hear your guys' thoughts from our listening audience. You can reach us on our Twitter at Baka Podcast, or email the Anime Baka Club at gmail.com, or leave a comment wherever you found this podcast episode, minisode. So we would love to hear from you, and feel free to disagree with us. This is very much a open debate of respectful ideas. Also, I want to say I don't mind getting those comments, filling in those gaps. I actually love those comments, and every time we share them, we talk like, "Oh my gosh, dude, that's so cool."
We eat them up.
Yeah, we do love them, but it has definitely it's weighed on my mind based on when we come to like our reviews. Like, should I have reviewed this softer because there was a book that filled it in? So that's why I wanted to bring this up. All right, we are currently watching Dragon Pilot Hisone and Masotan. It's about girls piloting dragon robots.
I really hope it's woohoo.
I'm actually super excited about this anime. I can't wait to talk about it. Let's say goodbye.
Thanks for listening.
See you next time.
Sayonara.